This is the story of baby Lindy and all the times we've been there for her. We were there in the beginning and when it became official.
Baby, congratulations.
We were there for Mom every day. We were there when big sister-to-be did
There's
this.
like 3 beads. She's been...
It's 2.
It's 2 beads.
When Dad did this.
Cheers, madame.
And when this happened, we were there too. So here we are. Baby Lindy will be born in exactly 10 minutes. Which is why we've organized an ambulance.
Just breathe, Dad.
To help get them to the hospital on time. We were there for baby Lindy. And we will be there for you.
Thanks so much, Fertility Show Africa, for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation today. My name is Ola Taiwo, and I'm the founder of the Fertility Conversations platform in Nigeria. This was set up as a safe space for individuals and couples going through infertility and pregnancy loss. Today, the conversation is about tips and factors to take into consideration when choosing the fertility clinic. There's so many clinics across the globe, and narrowing it down to one can be quite challenging. So I hope that this tips will be a starting point in helping you in terms of your search for a fertility clinic. One of the factors that I always take into consideration is the location. Is the location convenient for you? Are you easily able to get to the clinic on a daily basis? Because oftentimes when you're doing fertility treatments, you might need to visit the clinic every other day for scans, for blood work, for updates for the clinic as well. And it's also important to check with the clinic if all the procedure and testing will be done at that same location, because sometimes some clinics have labs outside the clinic. So it's important to take all that into consideration. As well, in terms of the location, what are the opening hours? Are you able to get time off work, or do you need to come earlier before you go to work? If that's the case, is the clinic open and flexible enough to offer earlier opening hours before work, or even opening hours after work? So it's important to ask them about that and take that into consideration. Also, the pricing. Fertility treatments are quite expensive. So it's important that you're fully aware of what the cost is before you start. And it's also important that you ask the clinic, is the price being given to you all inclusive? Does it include all the scans, all the blood work, all the drugs you need to take? Or are there any additional costs? Are there any IVF add-ons as well? It's important that you ask these questions and get confirmation before you start so that you ensure that it's within your budget. And as well with the pricing, is there flexible payments? Do you have to pay everything in advance before the treatment starts? Or are you able to pay instrumentally depending on the milestones of the treatment? Another factor that you want to take into consideration is the response time. When you send emails to them, how quickly do they respond? If the clinic is not responding quickly enough now before you start, you might get worse when you actually start. So it's good to take that into consideration. Also, try to have a consultation with a doctor. If you can visit the clinic, it will be great, but sometimes you might have to do it virtually. How is the doctor? What's been their experience? How long have they been a fertility doctor? It's important to take all that into consideration. And does the doctor listen to you? When you offer suggestions or perhaps you ask questions, how is the response? Does it seem like the doctor is willing to listen to your opinion and your thoughts and your fears? It's good to take that into consideration. And also ask, is that doctor working alone? Because there's some clinics where you have several doctors, and each time you go for an appointment, you have a different doctor. So is that okay with you if you have different doctors, or do you want to have only one doctor for all your treatments? It's good to have that conversation at the very beginning. If you can visit the clinic, like I said earlier, also check how's the other staff, how are the receptionists, how are the front help desk, how are people communicating with other patients that are currently working with them. When you go into the waiting room, what's the feel? Sometimes your gut feeling can really tell you a lot about how a clinic is and if that's a clinic for you. Another factor you want to take into consideration is, are there specialists for your particular diagnosis? So, for example, if the diagnosis you've been given is male factor infertility, does the clinic have an andrologist that's going to be able to deal with and investigate your situation very in-depthly? Are you looking at, have you had maybe failed implantations before? Have you had recurrent pregnancy losses? So whatever your situation is, it is important that you check that the clinic actually has a specialist in that area of concern. So that way you know that there's someone that can address the issues that you're concerned about. Of course, check the success rate. Ask the doctor what's the success rates of live births as well. But it's also success rates in your specific situation, because there's some clinics that perhaps treat only younger female patients that they might feel have a quote unquote higher chance. So it's important to ask if you're, again, you're dealing with male factor infertility, what is the success rate with that? Check reviews online, ask around, talk to people that might have used that clinic. Of course, success rate by itself is not alone, but of course you take into all consideration all the other factors, but it's always good to ask and do some reviews online and check. Does the clinic have an in-house counselor? Again, infertility is quite challenging and emotional, and it'll be great if you do have an in-house counselor that you can speak to and express your worries and concerns. Does the clinic have even referrals for support groups? People that have been through fertility journeys before that can explain to you and support you through the journey as well. If you're going through perhaps doing donor conception, if you're looking at donor eggs or donor sperm, does the clinic have their own egg donor bank or donors? Do you have to use them? Or are you allowed to use perhaps an external donor bank that you might be familiar with? It's important to ask. It's important to ask as well, perhaps if you're doing surrogacy, does the clinic have their own surrogates and surrogacy agencies, or are you able to recommend yours? It's important to take all that into consideration. And as well, when choosing how many embryos you want to transfer, it's also important to have that conversation with the doctor initially. Are you looking at single embryos, which is what has been recommended by a lot, or are you looking at multiple? Have that conversation with the doctor so you know fully well what the advantages and disadvantages of each is, and you're able to agree on how to proceed. After doing the treatments, if, for example, you have excess embryos left that perhaps you might want to use in the future for a sibling, what is the cost of storage of the embryos? It's important that you know that so that you take that into consideration as part of the cost. And when you're done your family building and you have excess embryos left, what happens to that? Are you able to donate the embryos to other individuals or couples that might be trying to conceive? Have that conversation so that way you know what happens if that's a situation in the future. It's also important, like I noted earlier, to take into consideration your gut feeling, take into consideration the pricing, the location, the opening hours, the staff, the reviews of how the other people have felt about the clinic. But I also want to know that no matter how good a clinic is, there will be some bad reviews. And no matter how bad the clinic is, there will be some good reviews. So that's why it's important to take success rates reviews, but to also look at your gut feeling when you visit the clinic or when you have that consultation with them over the phone or via Zoom. Take all that into consideration and then make a decision on how you want to proceed. It is not an easy decision, but perhaps using all these factors and taking them into consideration can help you better narrow down the clinic that you want to choose. If you're about to embark on a fertility treatment, I do want to say your best wishes in choosing the clinic and also for the treatment. It's important that you continue to reach out and find support every step of the way. And as well, just to say to the global community, everyone, WHO has said this year that 1 in 6 people are dealing with infertility. 1 in 6 couples across the globe are experiencing infertility. So it's important that we keep having these conversations, raising awareness, educating people, and encouraging more support for individuals and couples experiencing infertility across the globe. Thank you again, Fertility Show Africa, for this opportunity to have this conversation. Let's keep the conversations going and working together to destigmatize infertility across the globe. Thank you.